All right, welcome in, everybody. It is Friday. It's time for another edition of Full Court Press. The calm before the storm, Rob Bino. That's what the Friday slate is at this point. They give us a couple games. At least we've got the Mac and the Ivy back on Friday. Uh, Apparently, have been fine being lost in the shuffle the last couple of weeks, but they're back on Friday night, where they belong. You got to have these smaller leagues. There's an opportunity there for you on Friday to play Friday, Sunday, and get your games seen. And so it's great that the MAC and the Ivy, which always used to be on Friday, pretty much every game, are back in the Friday time slot. But first, Rob, before we get into Friday, let's talk about Thursday real quick. No get on the parlay. It was my only loss, though, and I kind of got unlucky. Charleston had Connor Hickman ruled out like right before the game. It appears he is ineligible and done for the year. Is that what you've gathered on that one?
It's what I saw, but I didn't confirm, but it looks that way, yeah. He had been a pretty big piece since he returned, too.
Rob, I'll be honest. I didn't feel like I had enough time to really react to that news. The number didn't move a ton, so I just decided to ride out my bet. There's no way I'm backing Charleston without Hickman. Right. So that was a little bit unlucky for me. But I did get a little bit lucky with Mercyhurst. They kind of came back. I had them +3. They come all the way back, never really led in the second half, but lose by 1. So that was a good result for me. And then South Alabama rolls. So 2-1 night for me on Thursday. Bounce back from the 5% loss on Wednesday. How did Thursday go for you?
Thursday was a split, 1-1. The good news was Belmont team total, never in doubt, 91 points against Northern Iowa. Just the 3-point shooting clinic that they put on from about the 11-minute mark of the first half until the end of the first half was really something. Belmont offensively, and Northern Iowa hung right with them. Northern Iowa played extremely good offense as well. Team to watch out for inside that Missouri Valley Arch Madness tournament. The unlucky was the Florida International Delaware game, which was the craziest. If that had been a March Madness game, opening round, first round, we'd have seen the endings 100 times by now. But just to let the folks in who didn't go to Twitter or see, I think Bayou was with me on his frustration in that game. Delaware leads 62-46, going away victory. No problem. 5 minutes left. FIU cannot hit a thing. They had only scored 16 points the entire second half, missed every shot they took, basically. And then all of a sudden, here comes the rally from nowhere to the point where, Adam, their final 3 possessions, they hit 3 threes. They keep getting stops or missed ends of a 1-and-1. Come down, bang 3 threes. The one that ties the game at 66, which was incredible. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm even going to have half a chance at this in overtime. About 5 seconds left. They make the 3. Delaware doesn't call timeout. They let it play out. They take the ball down the court, push through the lane. The struggle to get through the lane off the dribble was crazy. Looked like it could have been stripped. Looked like it could have been a foul. Looked like it could have been a lot of things. It was none of those. It was a shot put up that missed, and a Delaware player running from the far baseline comes in and tips it home with about, 1.1 left on the clock. So Delaware gets there. We just missed overtime. Would have been lucky to get a 2-0. Can't really consider that as a smart play. Delaware, Florida International over the total. But just an incredible. You fight all that way. You fight a 16-point deficit to get back in it, only to have a tip in with 0.1 left. But is what it is. It was a split, which isn't bad news. We'll get on to today.
Yeah, we have a couple folks referencing in the chat the joint package between Rob. Rob and I has done well this week. Another winning day yesterday. That is up till further notice. Double the CBB firepower, and it is officially the weekend package, Rob, because it's Friday, which means Friday, Saturday, Sunday. If you get it today, you get all of my plays, all of Rob's plays in college hoops for the entire weekend. Manzi says good morning. He says, let's start a big weekend. And I thought he maybe threw the 1 in there But I didn't know if he was going to help me segue into a big one in the Big Ten, Rob. But that's where the big weekend is going to start. Out in Madison, Wisconsin, at the Kohl Center. Big Ten basketball on a Friday night. You got the Michigan State Spartans, top 10 team. I think they were a little bit fortunate to beat Illinois, but they got it done last week. They've been off since then. So they've had time to prepare for this game, Rob. While Wisconsin, they've had a couple of things going on. One of those things was a very impressive midweek win over Illinois. So Michigan State, Wisconsin, Kohl Center tonight. Tight spread. Feels like a toss-up. Who do you got?
Yeah, we'll just get the ATS housekeeping out of the way here first. And Wisconsin, their team total 8-2 to the over last 10 games. We've come to know Wisconsin as a far more offensive team than defensive team this year. 5 of those 8 overs, team total overs, have come by 11.5 points or better. So some of them not even close. Wisconsin has been getting way over. For the Michigan State side, they are 4-0 to the over their last 4 games. Although the Illinois game, which is in those 4, was only 142 at the end of regulation, and the number was 142.5. So if you want to go by regulation, only 3-1. Interesting, both of these teams, like you just mentioned, they enter off of wins over Illinois. The Wisconsin one, I sort of, keep reservation or hold reservation on, because we know Kylan Boswell's been out, but Stojakovic didn't play in that game either. And Illinois was still able, and that was another one of those late rulings where the player was out, Adam, because that day for the parlay, I believe Illinois team total over was my end of the parlay. And it got to overtime at 81-81. I think we're looking at 81.5. But at 10:30, 10:45 a.m. when we were on, I probably would not have made that play knowing Stojakovic was out of the lineup as well. It didn't matter. Illinois scored on Wisconsin. Wisconsin scored back. But I do, feel a little bit of reservation about Wisconsin having to struggle like that without 2 of the better players for Illinois even on the floor. I guess it's an absolute positive for Illinois to know that they can go without 2 of those guards and still almost beat Wisconsin. Here we get a matchup where, like you say, Michigan State's been off 6 days. The other side comes off the midweek game. I'll say this fundamentally. I had just a quick list in my notes from early this morning of what Wisconsin absolutely needs to do tonight. It's interesting, Adam. Michigan State, they score a lot of points for a team that doesn't shoot well. They rebound. How do they score their points? Well, they're number 5 in the country in fast break points, believe it or not. An Izzo team being the 5th highest scoring team off the fast break league. They get a lot of fast breaks. They get a lot of second chance. They get to the free throw line a lot. They're not necessarily good shooters. If you're Wisconsin tonight, you cannot be slow in transition defense against this team. No how, no way. Michigan State's going to defensive board and get out. And if they see an advantage, they're going to take it. You can't allow second chance points. This matchup, height versus height, is pretty close. Somebody had said the other day that Wisconsin should play Austin Rapp a little bit more. And I agree with that. And he had a big game against Illinois the other night. But they have to get on the board. They can't allow second chance points. And again, they have to keep Michigan State off the free throw line, especially Fears. You can let Cohen Carr get to the line. He doesn't shoot him well. But Fears and Jackson Kohler, Jackson Kohler's another unheralded guy who is an elite rebounder on both ends, shoots the 3 better than anybody on this team, and gets out on the break. So Kohler's a big deal. But if you're Wisconsin, again, you want to be able to stop the break. Don't let Michigan State get those cheap points that they want, second chance points, or get to the free throw line. If you can do all that, it's still going to be difficult against this MSU defense, which ranks towards the top in every single category in Big Ten play. Boyd and Blackwell, what more can you say about the guards here? That's where it all starts. And they do have a little bit of ability to shoot from the outside with the bigs, to crash the boards with the bigs. My first inclination here when I started going through this was I'm going to play Michigan State. I don't know that Wisconsin is going to be able to consistently score in this game. But what kept me back a little bit, Adam, is the fact that, yeah, Michigan State is a fast break, a solid fast break team, and they depend on it a lot. But the Wisconsin team doesn't turn the ball over much. So, again, if they're not slow in transition defense, they could hang in there. I do still think Michigan State's the better team. Somebody pushed it up to 2.5 this morning, came right back to 1.5. Let's look now real quick before I turn it over to you and see what the line is here. Yeah, we're back to 2.5. So this line's done some flip-flopping over the course of the 3 hours between 7 a.m. and 10 a.m. now Eastern time. I would probably look Michigan State's way just because I think in the end, that rebound toughness is going to get them through. And again, I wonder slightly about Wisconsin having to struggle so much against it. Not struggle because Illinois is a tough team to beat, but feels like when you don't have Boswell and you don't have Stojakovic and you're leaving it in the backcourt to Wagler solely, you should be able to win. They couldn't do it. We'll see. I don't see a lot of lane penetration out of Wisconsin. And I'll tell you that Nick Boyd is going to have to shoot threes because he's going to go into the trees and get swatted away. So rim defense is huge on the Michigan State side. If I'm going to take a stance, it's going to be with Michigan State minus the 2 points.
Yeah, if I had to take a stance, that's how it would be as well. I threw the Michigan State hoodie on this morning just because I was like, what are we going to talk about here? I knew we would talk about this game. If I had to bet it, that's the way I would bet it. But I want to go through, my breakdown is just going to be kind of, there's a lot of good comments coming in from our viewers for this game. And so I want to kind of just like answer them one by one because I think it's very interesting. So we'll start with Mark. He says, how do we not take Michigan State money line? Well, it depends on how you think this game is going to go, because if you like a team that's going to win in the gray area, that's going to win all of the intangibles, you got to love Michigan State money line. But the game of basketball is still putting the ball through the basket. And Wisconsin, if they get going, they can shoot the ball, and then you have to worry about, them kind of riding the home atmosphere to an 8-0 run, a 10-0 run. And, that's something that Michigan State has been prone to. They've had a couple of very they did have a catastrophic loss on the road to Minnesota. And prior to that, Rob, they almost lost to Rutgers at Rutgers. That is not those are not good road results. To throw one more in from much earlier in the season, they only won by 4 at Penn State. So like if you're having these near misses on the road to the bottom half of the Big Ten, try the Kohl Center on for size, right? That is not the place that you want to go and have a hiccup and suddenly give up a 10-0 run, to a Wisconsin team that can make shots, and suddenly you're in a 10-point hole. Now you got to claw back. Ocho says both teams are off OT games. Yeah, but Michigan's game in overtime was a week ago. So what does that matter, right? They've had a week off. And I just want to double check that because now I'm going off memory, but yeah, they have not played. They have not played since Saturday when they beat Illinois in overtime at home. Wisconsin has had to play multiple games since then. And one of those games was, of course, an overtime trip to Champaign. They've actually played back-to-back OT games because the game on Saturday against Indiana was decided in overtime as well. So again, not created equal in my opinion. I think that probably favors Michigan State a little bit. That was that game took a lot out. In my opinion, that was a grueling game for Wisconsin to have to then go into OT with Illinois. Really needed a big second half to do it. Let's go to Shane. So Shane's going to be in the building tonight. I absolutely love this, Shane. I'll be in the building somewhere tonight too. It's just not going to be at the Kohl Center. So I absolutely love that. Shane says Michigan State playing in Madison. Give me the Badgers. Well, if you like the home angle, and if you agree with Shane, who's saying the Badgers are going to hit a bunch of threes, if Wisconsin's hitting threes, they're probably winning this game. Like if they go out and have a night, Rob, where they shoot 40 or 50% from three, I'd be shocked if Wisconsin doesn't win this game. So it really comes down to And this is why I kind of I don't like throwing the term coin flip around because I feel like too many people throw the term coin flip around. And it's like, just because a spread is one does not make the game a coin flip. The reason I think this one fits that sort of moniker is it's really going to come down to how Wisconsin shoots the ball. If they don't shoot it well, Michigan State will likely win in every other area, which means they should win the game. But the great equalizer in the game of basketball, where you only earn points for putting the ball through the basket, is the ability to put the ball in the basket. Wisconsin can do that. They can shoot the rock. If they shoot it well tonight, they will win. And that's why, even though I lead Michigan State, I'm out of this one. Ocho says Michigan State will kill them on the glass. Yeah, they probably will. But again, you don't get points on the scoreboard for rebounding. You do get points on the scoreboard for the ball going in the basket. And that is the fear for me with Michigan State, is that Wisconsin gets hot and suddenly they're able to sort of ride that Kohl Center atmosphere to a lead, which means they can probably win the game. But enjoy the game tonight, Shane. Good luck, whatever side you decide to be on. I feel like if you're at Kohl Center on a Friday night, Rob, Wisconsin, Michigan State, you've already won. It doesn't matter what you're on right there. You're already a winner.
Yeah, and the game, real quick, just to sum it up or wrap it up, it's such a contrast. You know, Wisconsin is a fast-paced team, third fastest tempo team in that league. And that's how you want to beat Michigan State's defense, right? You want to get out and get down the floor as quick as you can before they can set up. And again, I don't see Blackwell and Boyd getting to the rim a lot against this Michigan State team, which not only rebounds but blocks shots as well. They protect the rim, let's put it that way. But if those two guys are hitting threes, and also they have bigs that can step out and hit threes. And so Wisconsin just has more options. How many times have we seen Michigan State this year where Fears has no help on offense? It's just Jeremiah Fears, and nobody comes to the rescue. Jackson Kohler, when he shows up, is good. Cohen Carr, when he shows up, they're even better. But it's just an interesting contrast in styles here. And like you say, if Wisconsin's hitting their shots, I don't know that Michigan State can make as many shots as Wisconsin can. In my mind, they certainly can't.
Manzi somehow managed to get to a teaser to Michigan plus 8.5. Listen, I don't condone teasing college basketball, but if you're there with that number, ride it. Don't try to middle that. You got a good position. Just see it out, in my opinion. Let's go to Mad Max. Let's go to a game number 2. Max says St. Louis looks like they're in a smash spot, but it looks too easy. Always get a little weary when it seems like a shoe-in. What are your thoughts? Well, my first thought is it's a big number. My second thought is, Rob, it's big for a reason. My third thought is there's not a chance that I would take Loyola-Chicago. So my very quick handicap before I turn this over to Rob, if you do not like St. Louis, find something else to bet. In my opinion, there's no basketball reason to think Loyola-Chicago doesn't get their brains beat in tonight by the St. Louis team. My number is actually higher. It's not that much higher, but I'm at 20.1 since I've basically taken every prior out of my handicapping for Loyola-Chicago. It's what I had to do. Rob, I told you that this was a team that kept showing value for me because of like where I expected them to be at the beginning of the season. Now on in-season data, I've got St. Louis minus 20.1. So I didn't have many numerical edges today. This one is not enough for me to act on, but if you can get 18.5, which is it opened 18.5, it's still 18.5. I think there's actually slight value on the Billikens. Do you agree or disagree?
Well, I can't disagree. I mean, St. Louis has been too good to boosting the accounts this year, and they've just been too good on the floor. My first, when you have a team like St. Louis, Adam, in a conference like this, the first thing I did was say, well, is there a game on deck that might have their interest? Then I remembered, oh, yeah, it's the A10. There's nothing that could be on deck that would have their interest. It turns out to be Rhode Island on Tuesday night. They haven't played. They're another team that hasn't played in 6 games. They'll have played 2 games in 10 days when they take on Rhode Island down the road. Listen, Loyola can't defend anything. If you firmly believe that Coach Shirts might say, let's pull guys second half, and you want to get in and get out, you want to play first half because the number's a little bit cheaper if you split it that way. And maybe St. Louis has been off to some great starts this year where they've just destroyed people in the first 10 minutes and you collect your cash pretty easy first half. But I don't know that I would fear anything as far as full game is concerned here. Loyola gives you no reason to believe, unless St. Louis is just that, either they're rusty from 6 days off, or they're just not caring enough on defense to let Loyola score. If either of those things don't happen, this has to be a 25-point win for the St. Louis side. I think, in my mind, this team is probably absolutely hungry to get back out on the court and do some more offensive damage.
Sure.
And there's just no keep up for Loyola here, Adam. So I looked at team total. It's like 87.5. You have to get to 88. Not that St. Louis can't, but I don't think I want to go there just because if the end of the game gets like we're winning by 30, who cares? The other side of me says, Rob, they probably put 90 on this team. Go ahead and do it. I mean, you kind of ride that fence here because the odds makers put it in a good spot, but there's no way to back Loyola here. They could cover. Don't get me wrong. Things happen in college hoop, but there's no way you're going to get me to bet Loyola in any capacity.
Yeah, you don't think Loyola can get run out at home? St. Joe's won by 21 here not too long ago, right? Like, last time out, they lost by 20 to Davidson. That's not a good Davidson team. I mean, St. Louis is just so elite in comparison to pretty much everyone else in this league at this point that 20 is doable. That's the thing. Like, you knee-jerk reaction to seeing 18.5 with the road team is like, oh, that's a big number. I don't know. I think that's doable. Like, let's put it this way. St. Louis in their last game, they were at home against LaSalle. They were a 22.5-point favorite. They still covered that. That was what I consider to be kind of a big number. 18.5 on a road against a team that's 6-19 and has just had no like semblance of like being like any good all year. I would have to lay it with St. Louis. It is a tough thing to do. National TV, ESPN2, and you're talking about taking an 18.5-point road favorite. But Rob, they know they're on ESPN2 as well, right? Like, they might not care so much about Loyola-Chicago, but make no mistake, St. Louis is going to know they're on national television tonight. And my guess is they're going to want to show out. So lean toward the Billikens for me. I saw a couple of people in the chat. I don't hate doing the first half thing. Listen, I've kind of said this. You could do first half. You could go like first half. If it doesn't work out, come over the top with second half. St. Louis will roll one of these two halves, right? Like, they will. They're going to win one of these two halves. So if you take the first half, it doesn't work out. Maybe you do half a unit on the first half, come over the top with like 1.5 on the second half if you want to go that way. Or just lay the 18.5. Like I said, I'm at 20.1, so I do lean toward the Billikens. All right, Rob Vino, quick promo. Double the firepower, CBB. That's all of my plays, all of Rob's plays for the entire weekend in college basketball. Like I said, I'll be at a game tonight too. I'll see if you guys can figure out which one. I'll probably tell you by the end of the show. Totally unexpected. I had to change some plans, but something came up that I couldn't pass up. So we'll give you guys the rest of the show to guess what's going on there. But I will be on the road as soon as this show is over. Guess that's a little bit of a hint. All right, Garth says, let's go to the Ivy. He says, thoughts on Cornell, Princeton. He's leaning the home dog with Princeton. Also, real quick, Twitter, it looks like changed the algorithm. So I'm just going to make this announcement on a show-by-show basis now. If you are accustomed to watching this show on Twitter, you're going to have to go to YouTube. I've retweeted the link, but I don't know that WagerTalk is retweeting the link from theirs yet. I just have to, like, that's going to be a PSA. I'm going to have to say it for like the next week or two because some folks said they couldn't find the show live the other day. We're always live on YouTube, so you may have to start watching the show there. Okay, back to Garth, Rob Vino. He wants to talk Cornell, Princeton. We talked about this game earlier this year. I was wrong. believe I put Princeton in our parlay, and they got their teeth kicked in by Cornell. I was completely wrong about Princeton's ability to handle the Brian Earl 2.0 pressure, right? This is Joe Jocks. He's basically was an Earl assistant. He's playing the same style that Brian Earl played at Cornell. I'm on record calling them Timu Cornell, which is apparently offensive. But I really believe that this Cornell team is like a knockoff version of the Brian Earl teams. Rob Bino, we have raved about Brian Earl on the show and the job he has done at William and Mary. So my question to you is this. Cornell, what does Princeton do to not allow what happened in the first meeting to happen again here? I don't know that they have the answer. What do you think, Cornell, Princeton?
Well, they probably don't. I don't know that you can change that quickly, Adam. Again, that game was January 30th, so you're talking about a 2-week period to make adjustments. And again, I'm one of those guys who says coaches always want to fix what went wrong, but if you can't handle a certain style, just refer to the 2 meetings between NC Wilmington and William and Mary to use a comparison. NC Wilmington, as good as they are, second time around, couldn't beat this style. And it could be the same exact thing for Princeton. Cornell's actually playing pretty well at this point in time. I think 4-1 their last 5. They continue to score at will. You have to outscore them to beat them. Penn, Fran McCaffrey was able to do so a couple of games ago. Fran outscored him, got over 90. But Princeton was just beaten in every single area of the game the first time around. Just to give you some quick numbers from that box score in that game. How about Cornell? From 2-point range. And who's the guy who missed the 3 shots? 24 of 27, 89% from inside the arc. 11 threes to go with that. Free throw line wasn't necessary in that game. Again, certain teams can't handle certain styles, no matter how good statistically they may look. It's the same in boxing. Matchups make fights. Matchups make these games. I don't know that Princeton's equipped enough to slow Cornell down. What slows Cornell down, Adam, is a bad shooting night. And if that happens, but when you're that close, when you're inside the arc hitting 89%, that's kind of red flaggish. Like, how did you allow? I get that that's that's like an beyond excellent shooting night when you shoot 89% from inside the arc. But the defense has to be somewhat responsible for that as well. And can Princeton correct all of that? Suppose Cornell shoots, I don't know, 70%. They shoot 20% less tonight. Still probably going to win the game. They won that one by 23 on that night. Game hit 151. As always with me, I'm looking at totals with Cornell. Game has come down to 155.5 with the Cornell price going up. Somehow, money thinks it's going to be an under. It was the first time, 151, despite 87 out of Cornell. I think if there's one thing to look at here for me, it would probably be Cornell getting back to 80 in this game. Their team total 79.5. I find it hard to believe they don't get to 80 in this game. So my best advice for Garth would be I'd look Cornell team total. And Garth says he's leaning home dog, so he's taking points here. I'm coming from the other angle here, coming from total side, Cornell team total over 79.5.
Rob, I think you made the best point you could possibly make on this game, comparing it to the Wilmington, William and Mary sort of dichotomy that we just saw, where like Wilmington's, of course, last night also shout out Colin Gregory. His parlay would have hit Belmont to Wilmington. We talked on the money line parlay we talked about on the show, but like that's a great example. Wilmington, since the William and Mary games, right? Like they crushed Charleston. They win big last night. They won all their other games, but they just can't handle this style. It's just a bad matchup for them. And it like didn't even matter that it was a huge home game sellout at Trask Coliseum. William and Mary went in there and won no problem. Now, this is a weird one for me because I didn't have many numerical edges on today's board. A lot of the numbers are close to what I make them. One of them, there's really only 2 that stuck out. One of them was Princeton. So like Garth, I get where you're coming from, being like, yeah, I kind of maybe like Princeton on the number because now you're up to 3.5. Cornell took money, so you're up to 3.5. My number leads Princeton as well there. And listen, Cornell, it can they could mess up a game like this. Like Cornell by no means is a great team this year. So they can come out, play poorly on the road and, not really defend, and suddenly Princeton's in the game. But I look at the way they've played of late. They've won 4 of their last 5. One of those games on this stretch was an 87-64 win over Princeton. And the one loss on that stretch was to Penn, who really has some offensive talent at this point. That's Fran McCaffrey. That's, he inherited a couple of guys that can really score. And that's a team that I think matches up well with Cornell. So for me right here, like, I just want no part of fading Cornell with a team that I don't think is equipped to play their style. Princeton is clearly not equipped to play their style. So I actually leaned toward the big red, but it was the number that sort of kept me off, because as much as I think this is a nice stylistic matchup for Cornell, I want no part of them as a road favorite, because they're still not that great of a team. This isn't, if it was Brian Earl and the teams from a couple of years ago, sign me up. I'll lay 5. This team, don't really want to lay 3.5. So I don't know if that was enough to talk you off Princeton. Not trying to talk you off Princeton, but for me, it has to be Cornell or pass. Just the matchup, and going back to what Rob said, I think nailed it. Hard to imagine they figured out in this quick of a turnaround since the last time that these two teams played. Good discussion there, though. That was an interesting one. I'm glad that one got brought up. Because I thought that was an interesting conversation.
Yeah, their path, Adam. Princeton's path is just to score more this game. Don't score 64. Shoot better. Cornell will allow you to score. That's their path if you're going to play Princeton. Just think that their offense is going to be better, because I don't think their defense matches up against that style. Oh, look at this.
Silver Hazy says, hey, Trig, wifey gave me permission to go to a game next weekend for my Valentine's Day gift. I'm in Southeast Michigan. Want to go out of state? What do you suggest? I'll have to look at the schedule and get back to you. Southeast Michigan. So I'll have to figure out. You can get down to Ohio. You could probably get over to Wisconsin. Illinois isn't too bad. I'll have to see. We'll get back to you. I will jot that down. I'll look at the schedule. I will be at Merrimack Siena next weekend. That's where I will be on Friday night. I think that might be a one-off for me, especially after this weekend, but can't miss that one. So, that's going to be Massachusetts by the New Hampshire border. Don't know if you're in the market for that, but that will be a fun one. That's probably sold out. But I could probably get you a ticket to that if you needed one regardless. All right, back to games. We've got a lot of donations today. Hopefully that will make Kelly in Vegas happy. She was not thrilled that I informed her I will not be doing full court a last call tomorrow. So Rob, you will have a guest host to do the games because I will be in an arena. And again, I will reveal that at some point as the show goes on. I want to go to Robert Serpis first. Robert wants to go to the MAC. I love talking MAC basketball. He says, any thoughts on Mount St. Mary's? I'm all in on Mount St. Mary's. Well, I get it. They're on the road in Lawrenceville, New Jersey tonight at Rider, who's been one of the worst teams in Division I all season. But I will note that this is kind of a tricky trip. It is. So Rider's not the easiest place, I think, to play. Rob, back in the day, I got a name for you as an NBA guy, Jason Thompson, great Rider Bronc, first rounder. Those games, so Jason Thompson is the same age as me. He was in school 2004 to 2008. So his years at Rider, it's unfortunate he never got to the NCAA tournament. The reason he never got to the NCAA tournament was he either had to go through the Marist, Jared Jordan teams, another guy that had a cup of coffee in the NBA. Thompson had a great NBA career, but he also had to go through Fran McCaffrey's Siena teams. I believe we beat Rider in the final one year, but you want to talk about kind of disappointing that he never got his crack at the NCAA tournament, because those were some really good Rider teams that just ended up not being able to get over the hump against better teams. But Jason Thompson, best player in the history of Rider. Rider has seen better days. I'm sure that they would love to get back to that point, because this gym, Alumni Gym, Lawrenceville, New Jersey used to be rocking for Rider home games. It's small. They put the kids in the end zone. It's almost like a cutout. And they it's like auxiliary bleachers that are loud as hell. It is a great atmosphere for Rider basketball when Rider's playing well. You know what? It hasn't even been that bad this year. Now that the kids are back, I've seen some Rider fans at games. It's obviously not as many when you're 3-20 and you've only have one win over a D1 opponent this year, Rob, which was a game I happened to be at. They beat Iona. Tough times. But the reason I bring all that up is Mount St. Mary's has to make the trip. It's not an easy trip. And I was on Rider in this game in the first meeting. I felt like I got a little bit unlucky to push. I had Rider plus 10. Rider was tied at half. It was a very, very competitive game. And Mount St. Mary's kind of distanced themselves at the end. So this was another one. My number kind of came out right in this range. But I don't think it's going to be that easy. Mount St. Mary's is a tough, they're all the way down in Emmitsburg, Maryland. They're a relatively new addition to the conference. And I think it's tough. It's tough to go down there if you're a visitor, in my opinion. It's also, I think, tough for them to be on the road, still relatively new to the league. I think this is their second or third year. So based on how even the first meeting was, I like Rider here, plus the points. Hasn't made my card yet, but I've cashed a couple times this season with Rider. I don't know. Do you think I'm crazy for liking the Bronx tonight in Lawrenceville, New Jersey?
I'm trying here to help build a case for you. Rider, first of all, I could not get involved here just based on the ups and downs of results by Rider's offense. 90 against Manhattan, 81 against St. Pete, and then 52-47 in their last two games. Lose by 29, lose after that by 26. However, in Rider's defense, those games are against the two best defensive teams in the league, right? Marist and Merrimack. If anybody's going to shut Rider down, Rider's the worst offense. So you put the worst offense against the two best defenses, and you probably come up for that result. The fact that they got to 81 and 90 a couple of games before is kind of interesting, but they have the ability to get destroyed. Mount St. Mary's wins by 10 the first time, as you mentioned, Adam. They didn't really allow much in the way of offense for Rider. Rider shoots 30% from 2-point range, 46 shots inside the arc, and can only make 14. It's tough to bet a team solely based on what would be considered a defensive step down in class off of their last two and a Friday night home floor. Mount St. Mary's is a more talented side. They're not great offensively, which I guess is what would kind of hold you back from laying 5.5. Again, the total is the thing that's been really pushed here. Down, down, down to now 137.5 is the low point I see. And 132 were only scored in the first game. So you shouldn't get a lot of pace. You probably get a lot of bricks. I don't know. Maybe I could agree with the folks who moved over down 5 points and got their ticket in on under, but under's not generally in my vocabulary at this price range, 137.5, no matter who's playing. So I'd have to let it pass. I would find it really hard. It's one of those, we used to say, just hold your nose and play the dog. Rider's that kind of dog. There's spots where they cover, but you have to just cover your eyes and wait for the final.
Yeah, it's a really good point, Rob. Where I've had success with Rider so far this year is in that almost like that 8 to 11 point dog range, where if they're in the game, you're probably going to have a good chance to cover the number. This is one of those where it's it's just a little too, the number is such that it's if Mount St. Mary's can get a lead at the end and then they take a couple of trips to the free throw line, you could be in trouble. And honestly, that's how the first meeting went. I was in that game the entire way. It was tied at halftime, and they nearly covered 10 with the last 2 minutes of fouling, going to the line. All of a sudden, Rider needs to make a shot. Now they're not a great offensive team, as you've pointed out, and now all of a sudden you're kind of in need of a late sort of like backdoor situation when you're talking about a number like 5.5. So that's ultimately why I passed on that one. But again, I'd be weary of laying points on the road with Mount St. Mary's. This is not last year's team, which I didn't even really love last year's team that somehow made the NCAA tournament. I think Mount St. Mary's has been overvalued all year, and they are overvalued still, in my opinion. All right. Here's what we're going to do. So I gotta shout out Mad Max real quick. We appreciate the donation, but that's a Saturday game. We are going to leave Saturday games for the Saturday show. So I will be texting Kelly Stewart as soon as I'm off the show, even though she's mad at me right now. And I'm going to say, Kelly, Kansas, Iowa State has to open the Saturday show. Why would it not anyway? It's a 1 p.m. game in Ames, a huge game between two top 10 teams. So Mad Max, we will do that one tomorrow. First thing on last call. If you want another one, let me know in the chat. If you want one from today, because I feel like we owe you one from today. Appreciate the donations. A lot of donations to the show. Like I said, Rob and I, we donate the donations to charity. It's more of a pride thing. I want to out earn donations on all the other shows. Then I've got ammo when Kelly's not happy with me. I don't know if I actually don't know if that's ammo or not. We'll find out. Colin, you got it. All right. So the reason I'm not going to be on last call tomorrow is I had a opportunity to go to the Duke game fall in my lap, which I can't pass up. Duke Clemson tomorrow at noon. I would do the show from the arena if I was in some other place, but I don't think the Cameron Crazies are going to allow that. They're very loud. And I have to imagine you won't even be able to hear in the arena at 11:15 when last call is going. So I will be in the DMV-ish area this weekend. So Colin, you got it correct. As soon as this show is done, Trig on the road, bombing down the whatever highway that is to get to Washington, D.C. It's about a 6-hour drive from where I live. I should be there with a few minutes to spare. And I am going to this game tonight. George Mason, George Washington. It also happens to be a client play for me, and it also happens to be my leg of the parlay. So we're going to knock out a couple of birds with one stone. I've got 2 client plays locked in for tonight already. So I felt like, I can give one of them here. I am on George Mason plus 2.5. I cashed earlier this week backing George Washington. And in that breakdown, part of the reason I really liked George Washington against Rhode Island was I did not think that was a game that was going to matter that Rafael Castro was not there. George Washington, by all accounts, has struggled big time in his absence, and they had lost 3 straight. And I said, you know what? This Rhode Island team is not very good. They are not going to be able to probably do much in the way of getting to the rim anyway. I felt like we were getting a very cheap number because I think the market had moved too much for Castro being out. And all of those things turned out to be true. We got in at George Washington minus 3.5. I believe the final was 5. It should have been a lot more. George Washington got it done. Now they go home to play George Mason. But Rob, I don't think they can win this game without Castro. I think he's too important to keeping George Mason away from the rim. And George Mason, for as good as they've been this year, they really don't shoot the ball particularly well. So they kind of have to score at the rim. And now that you don't have Castro, I feel like they will score at the rim. They won the earlier meeting with this George Washington team. Castro played, and he played well. So you take Castro out, suddenly George Mason maybe gets some offense that's a little bit easier than they would had they had to deal with him being the rim presence that he is. And I kind of think the wrong team is favored. So I took George Mason plus 2.5. For parlay purposes, we're going to call it plus 2 because they've taken a little bit of money since. I will be rolling into GW tonight on the visitors. This is called the Revolutionary Rivalry, Rob Vino. Did you know that? This is a rivalry game, and I'm going to go with the visitors. George Mason will have a bunch of fans there. G-Dub had a bunch of fans at their place earlier this year. I expect a good atmosphere, and I think George Mason wins this game. Rob, with no Castro, Do you have a weigh in on the total here now, knowing that George Mason might be there for some easier points?
Yeah, and I always feel like with George Mason, I want to play lower scoring games just because the defense has been so good. First time around, just to your point, the importance of Castro, Adam, 8 of 13 from the field, 17 points in that game, 10 defensive rebounds, 12 rebounds overall. I mean, it's by far and away leads the team. So obviously, you're taking an awful lot away from a team that's already missing Benjamin to begin with. So GW loses the first time around by 5 with that production from Castro. Hard to see them, or excuse me, on the road. Hard to see them coming back home here, even though the revenge angle, I guess you would say, because it's in-state rivalry, could apply. Just tough when you're outmanned, and especially on the defensive end. Sometimes George Mason goes into these droughts, these scoring droughts. But again, to your point, without Castro at the rim, probably not anything extended here tonight. So I could see the George Mason side total-wise. To me, it still seems a little bit high, Adam. It started at 150, and I get GW wants to play with pace, and that's probably their only ticket to victory here. But Mason was able to control it the first time. Do they control it on the road? Maybe not for all 40, but maybe enough to stay under 148.5. So that would be, as far as total is concerned, that would be my look under 148.5. Seems like money's gotten there a little bit, 150 bet down to 148.5 in that game. So I think I would lean under.
I like that. Yeah. I mean, listen, they're again, I'm just banking on maybe a couple of easier points, but George Mason has not put the ball in the basket with any sort of like regularity of late. So, that's I don't dislike the look at under by any means. Like the way that these two teams like play, you would think that this is a sort of dogfight, lower scoring, close game team that's got to dig in and get a defensive stop. I just feel like with Castro, I'm getting pretty good value getting the bucket with George Mason. So George Mason will be my parlay leg, Rob Vino. I'm putting you on the spot. 13 minutes left on the show. What are you looking at for the parlay today?
Yeah, boy, this one was hard, Adam, because I got to tell you, I wanted to try just based on spot. I wanted to try and get to UNLV plus the 10 points against Boise tonight. Boise comes off of 2 really good wins against Nevada and New Mexico, and Utah State is up next for them, top of next week. It's that, UNLV won a couple games now. Maybe they can sneak in here plus 10 points. I'm not saying they can't, but what I am saying is I think I like one thing a little bit better. We talked about it earlier and when we were talking about Cornell, and that's Penn and Fran McCaffrey at home tonight against Columbia to get beyond their team total of 74.5. Penn has started to, they were kind of choppy, Adam, for a while as far as scoring goes. They played Columbia a couple of games ago, 72-67 final in that game, and Penn probably couldn't shoot it any worse, whether it be from inside the arc or from the foul line, and they still got the 67 points on the road despite the poor shooting. They're asking me now to get 8 more points on the home floor with a team that shot well below what their expectation or what their average is every single night. I figure that law of averages, people call it, regression to the mean or whatever. I just call it positive point production, I think, is in effect here for Penn in this game against Columbia, which, to be honest, hasn't been that great of a defensive team so far this season. In the Ivy, they're rated as the league's worst defensive efficiency-wise. So it only makes sense that Penn would come back and shoot better against them tonight in their home gym. Again, they're not asking me for a terribly amount, an overly amount of points extra to what we had last time. 67-75 tonight at home with a little better shooting against a ridiculously bad defense. I'll take my chances here. Like I say, UNLV crossed my mind, and I wouldn't talk anybody off UNLV tonight because of the situation, but I think I'm going to roll with Penn. The Quakers, Fran McCaffrey, team total over 74.5.
Fran McCaffrey's my guy. As you guys know, he was our head coach when I was at Siena College. back in the mid 2000s, the best days for Siena. Hope we can get back there at some point. Not quite there yet, but maybe Jerry McNamara will lead us there. As far as this game is concerned, something I've liked about Penn recently is like I alluded to this in the other breakdown. I think they have probably the most offensive talent in this league outside of maybe Yale. And Harvard's got some offensive talent as well. But like Penn, don't sleep on that trio of like TJ Power, Ethan Roberts. Like they've got some guys that can score the basketball for where this league is at right now. Like pound for pound, they have as good of scorers, like I said, as anyone in this league, maybe other than Yale, who's like the obvious best team. And then you've got Hinton and some guys that can really fill it up on Harvard. And of course, Fran, like he's all offense. Like he's all gas, no brakes. He's trying to put the ball in the basket. That perfect example. They played Cornell, 91 points. They dropped 91, no problem on Cornell, 91-81. They have the ability to throw some size in there, which I think is very important in this game. Penn has one of the bigger like rosters of the Ivy. And that's the thing. Columbia has the biggest, right? So Columbia, Kevin Hovda, is it? Hovd? I'll butcher his name forever. He's the guy that came over from Florida, brought a lot of size with him. This Columbia team has elite size for the Ivy for a low major. But what they don't do very well, Rob, is take care of the basketball. And this is where Penn, they've got some guard quickness. They get up and down the floor. I could see this being like kind of a nightmare for Columbia, given the fact that Fran McCaffrey has now had the ability to make adjustments off that first meeting, which occurred 2 weeks ago, right? Like Fran's the type of guy. They lost that game 72-67. He's probably going to go higher pressure. He's probably going to try to force turnovers on the bigs. And I think it creates more of an up and down game, which absolutely supports the thought that the team total goes over. I like Penn here. It was right on the number. Like my number came out almost identical. Like I think it was minus 2.6. If you force me to lean in this game, I think Penn probably finds a way to win. So I like that you're on the team total over because I think there's some correlation there.
Let's go get it. It's a good matchup from beyond the arc for Penn too, Adam. They're like 11 in the country, 3-point shooting percentage, and Columbia is the worst 3-point defense in the Ivy. So they should be able to make some hay here at home. I like the way the odds makers gave us a number that is in pretty reasonable position to get ourselves over the total.
Billy Humphrey says, hey, he said, we talked him off George Washington. That's why I love the show. Makes me smarter. That's the best compliment we can get. Obviously we'd, love you to go to the website, buy our picks, since that's how we get compensated. That's the only way we get compensated. So we appreciate you, supporting the show. The donations help. And then of course, if you really want to support, double the CBB Firepower package. Myself, Rob, it's going to be a great weekend. We'll be absolutely loaded. I have a second, so I put 2 4%ers out for tonight. I gave you one of them with George Washington. I've got another one on there that I like quite a bit. We've got 7 minutes left. I'm kind of scrolling through the chat. It seems like most people want to touch on the undefeated Miami of Ohio Red Hawks. So let's do it, Rob. Miami of Ohio. I had to swerve this game. I was going to go to this game. And then the opportunity to get to Cameron Indoor came up. And I said, well, Miami of Ohio, Cameron Indoor, Miami of Ohio, Cameron. Listen, Millett Hall's going to be rocking tonight. The game's sold out. It's on ESPN, national TV. Rob, I don't think this team would be undefeated if some of these MAC teams could step to them. And, the fact that they got by Akron early in the conference schedule, like I truly believe if Akron plays with Miami of Ohio again, Akron's probably winning the game by 10. Like I just think that it's a really nice story. I love it for college basketball. Listen, if for nothing else, the fact that Millett Hall in Oxford, Ohio tonight is going to have over 9,000 people there is tremendous. I would love to take a position on Ohio, but I just don't think they shoot the ball well enough to keep pace with Miami of Ohio. They will have opportunities to score. They will probably get to the rim. I don't think it's crazy to think they can hang around within 10. And you've seen some of these other teams, Buffalo, UMass, put a scare into Miami of Ohio. I tend to think if Ohio's got a chance in this series, because again, they play in a couple of weeks in Athens. I will be there with Brian Power in attendance in that game. I think Ohio maybe has a better chance at home. On the road, it's going to be tough. But I ever so slightly lean toward Ohio plus the points. You've been really good with Miami of Ohio totals. Do you have anything for us in the totals department? Miami of Ohio tonight.
Yeah, they clipped us that one night on the parlay when Peter Suter walked to the free throw line.
Elmer missed a free throw too. Yeah, that was ridiculous.
Yeah, they were missing free throws down the stretch. The two guys you want there couldn't get it done. But my idea would be, Adam, and I think it goes along with what you're saying about the second time around, which is going to come pretty quickly at Ohio U. I think for Ohio U, you have to see this one time first and then be able to react to it. And when I say this thing, I talk about the Miami offense, the pace they play at, the rate they shoot it at. You know, they look like they were stumbling a little bit, and they just went to Marshall in that Max Sunbelt Challenge type deal, and they blew the doors off Marshall in that game. 90 points again. It's interesting, their team total is 3-1 to the under in their last four, but it's difficult when you're scoring 86 and 85 and your team total is still under, because the odds maker's setting it up in the 87.5, 89.5 range. It's hard to get there every single night, but Miami's going to consistently score. There's no question they're going to be in the mid to upper 80s tonight against Ohio U. And what you need to do is what Frank Martin and UMass did. Score with them. Northern Illinois, somehow, some way, almost got this team, but I think that was more of a letdown spot for Miami of Ohio in that game. Like I say, I'd be more inclined to lean Ohio U when they're home after they've seen this once and they can react to it the second time around. But tonight, I don't know that I would take my chances with Ohio U. The team total, the total itself, if I trusted Ohio a little bit more, because I don't trust the Miami defense to stop people. That's for sure. But the opposing offense, if Ohio can get you to, I don't know, I'm going to go out and say if they can get you to 76, then you probably get over in this game. It's been bet up a little from 162 to 163.5. Not going to say that I would fight against that. But I wouldn't be on Ohio U in the first time around. Might be their second time around. Probably, if you like Ohio U, you want Miami O to smoke them here, so that when we get to the next game a couple weeks from now, you're getting a little more value with Ohio U at home.
Tough part is this. Miami of Ohio this year, they're first in the country, 92.7 points per game. They're first in field goal percentage, 53.6% from the field. Ohio doesn't rebound. They don't hit outside shots. Ohio, 334th nationally shooting the three. Outside of Pavletsky, no one can shoot. You know, Hathaway, what is it? Aiden Hathaway, Holloway. He's the kind of guy that like can take guys, you know, he's going to probably win his matchup with whoever he's on. But my like, is it going to be enough? Especially when you're probably going to get out rebounded, right? Like, I don't know. I feel like it's going to be an uphill climb here for Ohio. And then you've got to wonder, in front of a packed house on national TV, does Miami, Ohio go for the jugular, right? Are they going to go to try to land the knockout punch? Are they going to try to show out on national television? I don't know how that works. Because on the other flip side, you could say, well, all the pressure's on them. Ohio's playing with house money. All the pressure's on Miami of Ohio, right? They could be a little too jazzed up for the game. That's really, really tough to tell. I don't know really how you quantify that. For me, what I can quantify is Ohio just does not shoot the basketball well. And at some point over 40 minutes, I feel like that's going to matter. So that's why that was a very difficult game for me to sort of make heads or tails of. All right, Rob, we have hit the end of the show. Like I said, check out our package. double the firepower, CBB, Rob and I, every play we make all weekend long. I gave you the first one I made for Friday. It's a 4% play. George Mason plus 2.5. And there's plenty of 2.5s now. So we'll go with that for the parlay. It's a 4% play for me. It's George Mason plus 2.5. Will be the first leg of the parlay. Second leg, Penn team total over 74.5. I don't know who the mystery guest host is, but Rob Bino will be on Last Call tomorrow with Kelly Stewart, knocking out games for 45 minutes after Gianni, leading up to tip-off of the game I'll be at, Duke Clemson at noon, Cameron Indoor Arena. It's actually going to be my third time at Cameron Indoor. My sister was a student there years ago. I'll see if I can dig up some photos of me in the student section. They definitely exist. I'll tweet them out. Appreciate you guys tuning in on a daily basis. As always, the game is live on YouTube and on demand. Have a great weekend. Cash your tickets. We will see you guys on Monday morning. Last call tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern. Make sure you're tuning in and have a great night.